Welcome everyone to episode 18 of the North Star podcast. Today we got Joe, Vancouver muscle doctor. I'm super excited to have him on today. We're going to talk a lot about different techniques, chiropractic, and just his story, man. He has a cool story of how he got here and all the things that he's learned. So I'm going to pass it off to Joe. Just give us a little introduction, who you are, and we'll go from there, man.
Sure. Thank you, Jeremy, and thanks for having me on the podcast, guys. I really appreciate it. So I'm Dr. Joe Pratile, Vancouver muscle doctor, formerly the Toronto muscle doctor, and basically started my chiropractic journey about 13 years ago. I started much like everyone else. There's only two chiropractic colleges in Canada, one in Ontario and one in Quebec, and so I went to CMCC, 2011 graduate, and then started up with a clinic, worked my way there for 2 years, kind of earning my stripes in a high volume practice. My boss at the time was seeing about 7 people in 15 minutes. I was seeing 3 people in 15 minutes at the end of the 2 years. I didn't start that way. And you got a lot of reps in. It was very military, but also incredibly valuable. The experience that I gained there and the consistency was something that made me more consistent on who I am today. So without those reps and without that experience, I wouldn't have been able to kind of individualize and kind of trail off into the other modalities that I've learned now. So that's my foundation. I ended up parting ways with that clinic. We were kind of inspired to go in different directions. And I started with a multidisciplinary clinic that integrated a little bit more of physiotherapy, massage, traditional Chinese medicine. And that went really well for about 2 years. And then I decided to go private and work on my own. And it's at that point where I decided to basically work for about a month or two at a time and then travel for a month or two at a time. And during that time, I was single without 2 kids. And so I had the flexibility and the space and time and energy and money to be able to travel more of the world. And ended up going to Southeast Asia, Australia, India, mostly for yoga teacher trainings, but also to earn some certifications from different practitioners, some Thai doctors. And that was really fun and valuable experience, both to learn in a more traditional setting where there's actual handouts and you could say testing for the actual courses and certifications where you get an actual certificate, but then also from just you could say local shamans in the different cities and countries that I was going to. And from those experiences, I pretty much learned that there was more to health and healing than just what they taught me at school in the textbooks. Connecting with people on a deeper level without just saying it. You kind of took in through the other practitioners and just the light and the passion behind their eyes. I mean, they would treat you for sometimes over 2 hours and ask you for $10 or $20 Canadian. And some of the sessions and treatments I was getting in, Bali, Indonesia, or in Thailand or Cambodia were better or on par with a lot of people that I've seen in Canada and the US. And so it left an impression on me to come back to Canada and just do better, and then work a little bit more and go back out into the world and learn a little bit more and rinse and repeat as often as I could and as long as I could.
Well, and I think a really cool thing about you and in your philosophy about a longer appointment time is really cool. That was my biggest issue with going to see a chiropractic. I just felt like it was in for 5 minutes, then you kind of out in 5 minutes kind of thing, right? And it was when I first saw you, and I can attest to this, it was like, oh shit, this is cool.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never experienced anything in my life like this. Like this was an experience, like you say, right? And would you say that really adapted and that really you started to understand and see it because of these practices that you went to these different countries? Like, is that why you started to implement it?
Momentum is a huge thing for me, both in private and in public life as a practitioner. And so if there isn't a bit of novelty or a sense of newness, inspiration, motivation, momentum, you're not going to get gains with people. If you go, you train people in the gym. And if they come in and it's just something that it's the same workout every single time, you're not going to change their brain. You're not going to change their body. There's a consistency element to it that's important, but you have to inspire them if they're not internally motivated. And so for me personally, what I like to do is get people with newer treatments and modalities and try to exercise their intuition, try to exercise their ability to say that really resonates. Traditional fire cupping. Like that was amazing. I've never had that done before. Or you can use something from the United States, an Ashley Black fascia tool with little claws on it. So for me personally, gaining experience traveling and learning from different practitioners inspired and internally motivated me. And so I kind of treat, and I'd imagine you train on the exact same way that's worked for you. And so this approach works for me. And so I do it and share it with others.
Yeah, and going off of that, I think the big value here is that you didn't follow the norm, right? And you were saying at the beginning, you kind of like, you got a lot of reps in, getting a lot of people, but as you shifted, as you go through it, you're like, hey, no, like I'm going to do something that I've noticed that has helped me, that's going to inherently help other people, which I think is a good value that you have, because I think a lot of times you kind of get stuck in that rat race of like, what everyone else is doing, I might as well just follow it, right? And I think that's really cool that you've been able to do that, because that's actually a big reason why I still come. And if that, I'm just talking from a, let's say, a client perspective, but that's a reason why, because it's like I don't feel like I'm coming in and I'm just another number, right? I feel like you said, the connection, we've built a connection, we've been able to actually build some sort of friendship over that time period, and I feel like, hey, you know what, I'm going to come out there, I'm going to spend the time to come out there, like, you know, it's super cool.
I think that plays upon the safety element and the comfort that you feel when you're in practice. And I mean, I'm exercising people's nervous system, almost like a personal training their nervous system, like a personal trainer would train the muscles. And so if they don't feel a certain degree of both triggering but also relaxation, and they don't feel comfortable in my presence or in the clinic environment that you create, you're not going to be able to take them very far. And so you have to kind of tote the line from triggering someone and getting their nervous system kind of amped up, and then training their ability to also relax in your presence. And part of that is building that genuine connection, because if you just felt like a number and you could positively predict every single thing I was going to do, down to what adjustment I'm going to do first, second, third, fourth, I always start on the left side, or I do this, or I pull your ear, you got to switch it up. You know what I mean? And just that little thing allows the brain to grow and your body to also change for the positive.
No, and that's such a big, you know, aspect of it, because not everyone, and there's no one size fits all, right? Like you were saying, right? It's like, you know, you're always going in, work on the left side, and you're like, oh, I know what's always going to be next. It's kind of like, you're always like, it's just a mundane kind of thing, but it's like, if we go in and you're like, no, let's try this today. Let's see if this actually moves the needle forward, right? Like moving that needle forward and doing these different practices are going to really help people to understand, like, there's more to it than just an adjustment. Yeah,
you're right.
Right?
It's a beautiful point that you bring up, because part of how my approach spawned was from having that connection relationship with my clients, with my patients, because I'll ask them, how does it feel when we do the muscle work first? How does it feel when you do the adjustments first? And because there's that frequency that we're both marinating in, where it's not so much the power struggle of doctor-patient relationship, they feel like they can speak up and say, hey, Joe, what if you use shockwave today on my knee? Have you ever had that done before? At which point I'll tell them that from my experience, it's better if you use it on the back of the knee, and the research says it's less effective than using it in the shoulder, and go into all the things that I know about it. But we, like this podcast, kind of just play upon each other, learn from each other. And when you're in that frequency, I think, the ultimate frequency is authenticity. And I think that's just what I'm trying to go for.
Well, and that in itself shows, like I was saying about, you are doing things that are different than what the norm is. Yeah. I think that in itself shows your authenticity as a person, but also as a chiropractor, or as just a person in general, right? Yeah. Like as a person, as a human, and that's what I've like really valued as well. And I want to kind of go off of what you were saying about when you were traveling and things like that. Did that really open up your mind to different philosophies, but also how you wanted to treat people when you came back?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. It opened me up to the philosophies, because you had to let go, and I had to be the patient as opposed to the doctor, and feel my way through breathing as someone's working on you. Language barriers, because a lot of the treatments that I got, you're not speaking the same language. Even payment at the end, sometimes it's all done on a calculator, because if you don't know the currency, you don't know the conversions, they'll just type something in and you'll ask, is it US or Thai baht or something like that, and that's just the way it works. But The philosophy spawned from absolutely. I'm someone, I don't know what you call it, but I kind of take the best from what's around me and merge it together. And I'm very, very, very adept to doing that. I've had a lot of fortune in my life to work with a lot of extremely competent health practitioners, as well as wise counsel and people in my life. And it's not always even just in the health realms that I'll gather information. It could be on the streets of Vietnam. I mean, I learned how to do an ear adjustment there. So it's just like, it just completely depends on that frequency that you're marinating and vibrating in. And I mean, if we believe in that frequency scale where they've got authenticity at the highest, and then bliss, liberation, freedom slightly below it, and then love, and then all the way at the bottom, the most dense frequency is pain and anger and resentment and things like that, then authenticity is the highest frequency, but the hardest to hold. And it's exhausting trying to be authentic the entire day. It's exhausting. Sometimes you just kind of want to go into more of a performative part of what you do because it's easier.
Yeah, you got to kind of go through the motions.
This, even if it's just the salutations at the beginning with a patient or client, it's hard to just always be on and authentic. But at the same token, it's necessary to make, I think, each and every day more fruitful. Otherwise, it gets very much like I forget his name. Is it Ed Murray, Groundhog's Day? Who's that guy? Kingpin guy. What's his name? I like that guy. Anyways, he's a legend.
Well, and I think the big thing here too is that when you show up as your authentic self, you're going to attract people that are going to also be of value to you as well, right? Like, yeah. I think the biggest thing too for any service business, if you can make a connection, let's say that person can help you out, but you can also help that person out too, right?
Totally.
And then you're going to surround yourself with people that are more like-minded with you, rather than people that you feel almost as like it's taking away from who you are, right? And I think that's hard, is if you have someone that's coming in and they just, let's say, just drain your whole battery. It's kind of like, doesn't make it fun for you either. Yeah. Right? It doesn't make it enjoyable to work and do what you do and help people, right? You want to be helping people that are going to give you a little bit back as well. Yeah. Right? Even though they're coming to see you for help, they can still, some people can still give you that energy back, right? And you talk a lot about that, about energy distribution between people. I would love to hear a little bit more of your insight on it and kind of how you go about it and you understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are all geniuses, every single one of us. It's just helping them out with something where they can uncover, unpack, unlock that creative genius inside of them. So an example would be, a lot of people come in for pain. And if you can get them out of pain, that energy that was going towards occupying the space in their brain that was going to pain can now go into, wow, creativity or something that they actually want to talk about, their passion for life. But it gets locked and it gets drained, and you see it, you can read it. I feel it off of people, but I can also kind of see it. It's difficult to explain. Harmonics in voices is something that I pick up on a lot too with people. Like
how they speak, or
just how they start speaking, and that becomes somewhat of my baseline. And then also if they if you get them to switch to something manual and you ask them a question maybe nobody's ever asked them before, I'll do that purposely sometimes in treatments with clients to see if their voice intonation changes.
Interesting.
And in that way you can see if their personality or their body is fractured, and if there's some meat on the bone to go in there and maybe work on them, and then they're resonating off of your presence to calm down that harmonic, and you're kind of bringing the two together. So I don't know if I explained that right, but it's basically like you'll get a baseline idea of what their energy is, and then as a chiropractor, say I'll go for a neck adjustment, ask them a question, their harmonics are usually going to change, so you know that they're a little apprehensive about what's about to go on. But through my hands and through my voice, if I can give them almost like the archetypal mother, father, or parent, allow them to regulate off my heart rate, off my blood pressure, off whatever I'm doing, because that is my domain. Like that is my kingdom, so to speak, that people are coming into and getting body work done on. Then they can also, even though this is a stressful experience, reprogram and redefine it in their brain as something that they can move forward with to build confidence.
Do you find that has been, so for example, from my understanding, let's say you're a very calm individual, you're helping someone and you're, do you find that really helps the other individual to stay calm as well? Is that what you're kind of referring to when transferring transferring energy.
Yeah, like the other thing about being authentic is you don't always want to completely project everything that you're doing, right? For example, like if we look under the table now, like our legs are probably similar position, our arms are probably similar position. We're modeling each other to have a comfort level. So you don't really want to project it too much, even though at the same token, it doesn't matter. Projecting it is still going to bring them some sense of safety and comfort in your presence. So to be authentic, sometimes you want to amp it up. If they're depressed, you want to amp it up a little bit. You want to meet them where they are. I don't want to come in screaming at someone that just had a really shitty day, right? But at the same token, you want to take them through a ride. And part of what I do is entertainment. And entertainment, someone defined as entraining their mind. And you are trying to entrain their mind to a new frequency. It's not the novelty of like, it's some fun and games, but a part of the element of what I do is a magician. And the magician archetype is to inspire and create and highlight the mystery of what's going on the entire time. And so I try to do that by allowing people to feel comfortable in my presence as quickly as possible.
I think that says a lot about you too, because, you know, I'm talking from my experience, but I've talked to a lot of clients over the years that also that do personal training, that do other, you know, models of sort of recovery, you could say, chiropractic, physio, whatever, etc. And I think the biggest success I've seen with practitioners in any field, even in my field, is that you're able to be relatable, but you also, like you say, you show up and you be yourself, right? And you tell people the truth. I think that's a hard thing too, right? It's one of those things that there's so much noise around us sometimes that's easy to get caught up in the next best thing, or the, you know, when sometimes you just need to go lift some weights and start eating your vegetables, like, you know what I mean? So you probably see that a lot too in your field. Yeah. But what would be some like basic things that, you know, that you would want to do with someone to start getting them on their journey to a healthier and a more recovered version of themselves?
I mean, that's kind of an easy question to start with. I'd throw it right back in their face and I would ask, how's your sleep? Yeah. I'm not doing the healing. Their body's doing the healing. I'm literally just there telling them something they probably already know. It's already locked away in the pit of their stomach or in their heart, their intuition. They already know what to do. They can go on YouTube and watch 20 billion videos about eating vegetables and grounding and cryotherapy. But like the secret is probably like, how's their sleep? How are you recovering? How are your relationships? How many friends do you have? Are you challenging yourself to get out there and distract yourself with positive experiences versus just thinking about the pain? Like, I mean, I'm 40 years old now, and as I've matured to understand, like, life is not easy. We're just supposed to get better at it. So part of getting better at it is looking yourself in the mirror. So if someone's asking me what are some of the basics, like, they know the basics. They've been living life long enough where look at sleep, number one. Like, what I know about sleep and what resonates the most is stop eating as early as possible. Yes, you can link it with fasting. Yes, you can link it with intermittent fasting. You can go carnivore if you want to. You can do whatever you want. But if you stop eating, I think it's Brian Johnson that tells us this, the guy that has the 60 days or 90 days of the perfect sleep score. I think he's setting the record. Maybe it's 600 or 900 days in a row of a perfect sleep score with Whoop, heart rate variability.
Yeah, the billionaire that is doing all his
you got it, man.
Tests.
Everything, right? Yeah. So he's awesome. He's cool. And not everything he does and says resonates, but that means that there's enough meat on the bone for me to be unbiased and listen to the things that do resonate with him. He's not a guru or a savior by any means, just like a Tony Robbins is not my guru or savior, but I like picking the parts about the passionate way that someone speaks about something. And he said straight up, like, I've tried everything when it comes to sleep, and you can use grounding sheets and all this stuff. Just stop eating. For him, before 11 a.m. You can push it till 1 p.m., but if you stop eating and your energy is not going towards digestion, your body, your circadian rhythm, your organ clocks, they're all going to do what they're meant to do, and you're going to have a really kick-ass sleep. So recovery is huge. If people are asking me how to feel better, I would look at sleep as one of the number one things.
Well, I think it's cool that you say that, because it has nothing, like, not that it has nothing to do with your practice, but you're just telling, like, you're like, hey, get some better sleep, get some higher quality sleep. Kind of same thing in my field, man. It's just like, you know, it's really hard to lose body fat, gain muscle, whatever it is, if your sleep is total shit. Like,
it's huge. And that's the truth and authenticity that you're talking about. Like, what would you do and say? In my brain, I'm not saying, well, you need to come in 3 times a week for chiropractic adjustments. Then you need to see this kick-ass massage therapist that we have over here. And you probably want to put some traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture in there. I'm looking for free stuff that are sustainable, that empower the individual. if you want to come and season me into your life, no problem. I'm here for you. And I'll not always have the latest, greatest fun toys for you, but oftentimes I am, dabbling in whatever new and is exciting out there because it keeps me motivated. And it's just part of my cosmology. It's just who I am as an individual. If I was going to break it down, then I'd probably say I'm an artist. And I'm an artist because I'm an individual. I like doing my own thing, and I'm still discovering that aspect of myself even today. So we all wear hats, we all wear roles, and sometimes I'm a father, and sometimes I'm a chiropractor, and I've been a husband before, and so it's all these different things, right? And so you wear different hats, you wear different roles, but then who are you? Mm-hmm. Are you the father? Are you the husband? Are you the chiropractor? Are you the business owner? Like, who are you, right? When I was a child, I was none of those things. I was just that, precocious magician little kid that was a bit of a shit disturber and did my thing. So that aspect doesn't need to die in a person. It can be balanced, and sometimes it goes out of balance to find the balance. But I think that's the really fun part of life that I wouldn't say getting back into right now at this stage of my career, but I've reached, I don't even want to say a midpoint, maybe a quarter or a third into my career at 13 years. And so I'm really trying to ramp up the inspiration, the passion, the purpose, the innovation, the leadership, the education, and take it to that next level.
When you mention next level, what's the direction that you really want to take things?
There's so many different directions, but I would say if you're going to pin me down, I'd say probably buy a clinic. I mean, I've been on my own for quite a while now, so I think the next step is ownership on a larger level. And I forget who had the quote. I think it was a woman up in the Arctic Circle named Ola Wolny, but she said, "You're not a leader if there's no one behind you. You're kind of just a man taking a walk in the woods. So you need to have people around you and a vision worthy of leading people." And so through that innovation, education, and leadership, I want to, now is the time for me at least, and then I'm at that stage of maturity to lead a clinic, and I would say shake up the industry a little bit.
Yeah.
And with the right kind of shakeups, not just to get attention. I don't honestly care if there's any attention, but the shakeups that I'm thinking of will probably garner some attention in a positive way, and hopefully some of the things that we do will be adopted by other clinics because they're the right thing to do.
Well, I was actually reading something this morning that's interesting. You say that is, I think a lot of times we sometimes get offended, or we get if somebody's trying to copy us, what I was reading, it was like more like taking it as a blessing that somebody's trying to, because they see that there's something that you're doing of value, right? And if, like you're saying, adopting your idea with a clinic, like if more people are doing it, it's helping more people anyways, right? And I think that's such a big positive avenue that needs to be understood, is that, like you were saying, more and more, if you can work together as a group of people and all of you can do little things to improve someone's life, it's inherently not just going to help you as the individual, but it's going to help that person, then that person, and that person's going to say it, and it's just going to keep that that ball rolling. And I think it's such a huge piece, and I think it's really cool. And we've talked about it off the podcast of a few of your ideas, and I think it's a really cool direction you're going, because I see the value in it, and I understand what it can do for myself, because I've done a lot of the things that we've chatted about before. And the direction that you're going, is that something that you have always envisioned that you wanted to do, or is this something that's just recently happened for you? I know, like you said, 13 years, you're starting your practice, things like that. Like, did you see 13 years ago, did you see where you are now? Did you see this being where Joe would be 13 years ago?
Yes, I always saw myself as someone that was going to shake up the profession. I just didn't know in what way, how, or why. I didn't know the timing from it, but from the start I knew there was going to be something that I did, say, acted, that would probably shake up the profession. I didn't have any of the skill set. I'm still working on my skill set, like I think everyone that is hard on themselves is doing. But no, I would not have thought that I would have some of the clarity over some of the moves that I think I want to make in the future at this point in the career. I knew something was going to come, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And I still can't tell you with exact clarity what it's going to be, because I like to keep some things private. Pretty open guy, but I do like to keep some things a little close to the chest. And
I think it's nice. It's a little bit of a little teaser,
That's it. It's a little bit of a little teaser, and I think everyone likes a little edging, a little teasing.
I really think the value of you talking about this is going to really resonate because you had just said, I don't feel like I feel like I have more to do or more to learn. And I think right there shows that even someone who's been doing it for over a decade is still trying to learn, is still trying to improve their skills, and I think there's that misconception where a lot of people just start their first year and they're like, oh, I'm going to figure it all out in a year. And there's still people in this industry or industries that are working towards that. And, if you had, I really like asking this question, but you, Joe, 13 years ago, what advice would you have wanted to give him that you know now?
Oof. I would say be patient.
Yeah.
Be patient. Kuwasabi, like just slow down a little bit. I am someone who has that Aries Taurus spirit to them, which is just kind of get out of my way. And when you get into that vibration, you have that you can be abrasive at times. And I have soiled relationships and conversations in the past just because 13 years ago I didn't have that kind of diplomacy or cultured response or big picture outlook on things. It was just, I want it now, kind of like a toddler. And so I've had to do a lot of inner work, looking in the mirror, as well as learning and chatting and talking and discussing with people, mentors, older, same age, younger, and just see where they're at in the game and building relationships to see how they've worked through some of their issues with men and women. I mean, there's only certain things I think men can learn from same sex and different sex and all the sexes these days. And so I think the main advice I would just give to myself is be patient, man. We never know when we're going to leave this earth. And some people, I think it's a little bit sad. They push a little bit too hard, too fast, and we look around and we're like, well, you're going to lead to exhaustion or something like that in the future. But you also don't know what's going on in their head and what their fate is. They could die tomorrow. So for me in particular, I can be extremely hard on myself with deadlines and pushing for the moon without building the rocket ship. And so slow down. Value people, value relationships, keep learning from everyone else, and just let the pot boil a little slower than sometimes I would like.
Would you say that this is something that you try to teach your kids? Is this something that you've trying to adapt? And because I think the biggest thing from what I'm hearing is you're learning. And I wouldn't even call it a mistake, though.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a mistake. It's because if you never did it, you would have never learned from it.
Sure.
So, but is this something that you inherently are trying to, teach your kids? Like what's something that you really want to, show them and understand? I know they're still a little bit younger, but I think a lot of it, the development of it is happening now. And what's something that you really just want to, show them that they're able to also understand?
Yes, and I think that's a great question. The reason I pause is because I think about specific instances, almost like a lesson plan where that might come up in the different activities that we're doing. But it's not a lesson plan, it's more of a way of being. I can teach them patience by being patient myself.
Yeah, so, reflecting. It's kind of
and you can label it by saying we're being patient right now, but really I think they download more from being in that moment, the video reel or frames per minute of just in their car seats in the back seat and there's rush hour traffic or there's an accident, we can't go anywhere and we've already been sitting in the car for an hour and they're like, what are we going to do now? And it's just, okay, let's maybe put some music on or let's tell a story. Just be patient. But there's not like really a lesson where I'll prime like a sandwich and tell them we're going to learn patient now and then go through the story and say we're going to end on patience so that they know that word and it's synonymous with story time. It's more for me just honestly a way of being and let them download that way through who I am, the smells in that moment when they're learning patience, like things like that. And so I try to more build, like in clinic, the culture of just whatever to me brings safety so that people can have the most available energy to exercise their creativity. And when people feel unsafe, the blinders are on. And so for them, being patient is more or less just like a way of being. You're going to screw it up. Everyone screws it up. And that's how you learn the outsides of your comfort levels. But just through my own actions, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. I think just experiences too, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's I think it's lessons. Like, sometimes you're gonna have to, like, you don't know every day. Like, you know, in 3 hours from now,
Yeah,
you don't know what's gonna happen, right? There might be a
totally.
lesson where you just have to, teach patience, if that's waiting in line for something or whatever it may be,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
Um, Going off this, because we're talking about kids, and I think
Yeah.
this is a cool topic for you to talk about when it
Mhm.
comes to chiropractic and
Mhm.
kids.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of parents over the years ask me, should my kid be doing physio? Should my kid be doing
Mhm.
chiropractic? Should my kid be doing massage? Like, but
Mhm.
I want you to talk about your field and helping kids with any chiropractic work, and if you've seen anything with your kids, if you've done anything with them as well, if
Yeah.
there's anything, if you think parents should be investing in that, or if that's something that is popular or of
Mhm.
need.
Yeah, my kids have seen me growing up adjusting their mom. I've adjusted them. I'll do some light craniosacral holds on their neck, their sacrum, their lower backs. I don't do anything with any kind of normalcy in their lives, but they've seen it. They've been around it. I think in the chiropractic profession, healthcare, all industries, they're going through a renaissance right now.
Mm.
Part of the apprehension people have for physio chiro massage with kids is well seated in the fact that they have not been advertised by individual clinics or chiropractors or healthcare practitioners or their associations very well. I think they've done a horrible job, or it's just not been in the forefront of their minds on what that could
Mm.
look like. The individual who I'm learning from right now does a chiropractic technique that doesn't crack the body. He's 75 years old. He's been in practice 45 years, longer than I've been alive. And so he does quick tendon slides on the body, energy releases, almost like creating a little cavitation bubble or vortex of energy that goes through your system. I see it more as alchemy. There's not a lot of stress that you feel in your body, but there's a profound change
Mm.
structurally that can come from it. And so part of, at least in my own profession, I think the apprehension for people to go into chiropractic for babies or young children, unless the practitioner has a designation, is well founded, but because they're afraid of cracking. They've learned from too many martial arts movies that, when you step on the celery stalk, you crack the neck, you could kill something or someone. And so I think that it's well founded, but it's every profession needs a renaissance, and it's coming. It's coming big time. And I've already started looking into that as being the innovator, as an offshoot, or as
Mm.
a way to foundationally change the way that I practice, even after 13 years in the game.
Wow.
So adopting a form of chiropractic that is non-cracking focused.
And would you say that's more tailored to that kid kind of youth to elderly? Is that more
It's a
what you've seen?
phenomenal question. It's tailored to absolutely everyone, because you can do it on anyone and everyone, and you can teach it to anyone and everyone,
Cool.
because there's no cracking. So you don't have to have a designation to learn it. The way that I see this individual practicing is an incredible way that anyone can learn it without the university background. The inherent gifts they already possess is all they need to show up and learn this technique. And they can be bedridden in a hospital. They could be a newborn baby. You can still go into it with the ability to change their structure, their energy, and influence their trajectory, in a positive way in their life.
Well, you just mentioned newborn baby, and I think that's actually want to touch on that, because that's something that I'm curious about too.
Sure.
I've heard about this for chiropractic with newborns,
Mhm.
and what are some instances where a newborn would need to get chiropractic, but also what profound changes can you see with getting a newborn doing some sort of chiropractic work?
It's a really good question, because there's certain words like when would they need to do chiropractic, right? That
Yeah.
they don't necessarily trigger me, but I think it's always up to the parents to decide what they choose to do, and
Yeah.
they're looking for advice from different professionals to help out with certain issues. So if it's a difficult delivery, and that could mean forceps, it could mean suction, it could mean sometimes with C-sections, it could mean when the baby's flipped upside down and they're not coming through the right way. Any stress that the mom goes through, there's direct links to the baby coming out. And so you can see that as, in the most basic and structurally obvious would be like a torticollis, so a tilted and
I've
wry
seen that
neck, where you see
before. Yes.
the muscles kind of pop in and pop out. That's well suited for chiropractors, but in particular pediatric chiropractors who specialize in that and probably have a story or rather they had an instance where they came out that way. That's the neat thing, is we live in a world right now where you can go on YouTube, you can go on people's websites, you can, if you do the research, you can find someone that's had your specific problem or issue, or your child's specific problem and issue, and they've solved it. And just by being in that frequency, as soon as you step into the room with them, the child's next going to probably start to get better, because they're going to regulate off of whatever was downloaded in that moment to make them feel better. And then the touch is just like the cherry on top, you know?
That's just that. Yeah. Well, that talks about kind of your energy transfer you were talking about, right?
Absolutely.
Is there, for you currently right now, is there a specific, I guess, niche or I guess clientele that you tend to help more of, or do you kind of just, you know, take on people that are pretty active, not like what's your kind of take right now on that? With yourself?
You know, I'm at a bit of a crossroads, because I would have, before joining up with the new mentor and chiropractor and learning the energy techniques, so more the metaphysical energy mixed with the physical energy, I'd probably say you're more athletic population, because the modalities that I use are akin to training in the gym. It's a good workout. And so I've resonated a lot with that client base in the past, physically fit populations, or at least people trying to get into that mode, all the while seeing their parents, brothers, sisters, kids, but not being my niche. So I do see everyone, but what I really want to do is see everyone, including babies, without necessarily having the certification, because what I want to bring into it energy wise is something that is able to be trained through to everyone. And so they can learn, say if I'm working on a newborn baby, or I'm working on a woman in a wheelchair, I can show them how to do specific things based on what I find, where they can do that stuff later. And it doesn't involve cracking, which is taking a joint in the spine or in the body past its paraphysiological range, where it's not quite a dislocation, but it's enough where the nervous system is like, what the heck was that? And then the brain changes, because that's old patterning of what it thought it could do is changed for the better. Very Joe Dispenza like.
Well, and this, it just goes back to, like we were saying, there's no one size fits all to all this stuff, right? And I think it's cool that you have these different modalities that not just are the same. Like you said, you walk in, you know, oh, okay, this person is just gonna do this and this today, like every other time. It's like, no, there's different modalities to help different people.
Yeah,
I think that was my biggest thing too. I'm gonna kind of just keep pumping your wheels here a little bit, but
sure.
That was a big thing for me, is like, I've never, these modalities that you used the first time I came in, I had never even heard of or even like knew of. And I think that was the really thing that really caught my eye in the way of still continuing to come back, is because I knew that this wasn't just a appointment for X to fix this problem. It was more like you said, there's different energies and there's different ways of going about different techniques depending on the individual. Yeah. And I really valued that too. So going off of all these different stories and clients and this, is there any, you know, I like when people tell their kind of some cool stories, or if there's been anything when you were traveling, or seen anything, or any interesting stories that you had when you had, you know, I know that there's that ear one that you've told me about. Is there anything, like any cool stories that you have that, you know, that really taught you something that you're like, oh wow, this is so cool, now I can go use it in my practice?
I think it was more moments where, when I first graduated and I was trying to get to a competent level, it was literally about getting reps in. Hence why that first clinic, and working 2 years, seeing 3 people in 15 minutes, bossing 7 people in 15 minutes, was so valuable. Traveling after that, I would adjust people on planes, trains, automobiles, on the side of cars. Going through seminars in the States, I'd learned from American chiropractors how you can adjust up against a wall standing, sitting. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be in an office. And again, going back to the technique I'm learning now, which is energy, you don't even need the table. So, you know, person to person, you can connect and relate on and help them in that moment. And a healing can occur, you know. I mean, people throw that, you're a healer, or this is a healing moment. You can have that anytime, any place, anywhere. And being in that frequency of serving other people was really hammered home for me through traveling, in those moments where I'd be on just like a fishing trip, and someone would be in terrible neck pain after trying to bring in a tuna.
Yeah, and they're like, Joe.
Yeah, and I mean, I have the footage of just like adjusting their neck in the bottom of this boat, like rocking back and forth and barefoot, and me just being like, this is amazing.
That's so cool.
Because it was fun, right? And it was just,
Yeah.
that was my way of helping. I mean, everyone has their gifts. Perhaps mine is with my hands. Perhaps mine is with my willingness. I don't know. But that was just what seemed to resonate in the moment to help that space. And so that was my role. So,
What, and you mentioned like planes, trains, side
Yeah.
of car. Like, how did those all? I'm so curious now. Like, even
Yeah.
if you just tell one, like, did somebody come up and they're like, oh my god, or did you see like they're like, oh whoa, you know, I could see that something's way off. Like, what
Sure.
were some?
Sometimes you're traveling with other chiropractors. They're like,
Oh,
can you
okay,
adjust
yeah,
me on
yeah.
the plane? And so you just lay them on the
Yeah.
ground. Other times you're not, and you're just maybe out at a gathering and someone's like, you get a little bit of space in a different room or something like that. Or you're out leaving and they're grabbing their wrist or they're grabbing their arm and they tell you, and you're like, that sounds like just a stuck joint. You want me to just do something really quick? It's like, and then you'll just do it. I mean,
You're like,
I
"Oh my
remember once was on public transportation, and I was coming home and there was a guy like rubbing his elbow, and I could just really tell that it was
Yeah.
just something really, really, really simple. And so I kind of just talked to him for a little bit, and he was open to it, and he just let me kind of just crack his elbow just like that.
That was
It
cool.
just, you know, sometimes it behaves right when you want to, just like magic, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you make it work.
That was a good trick, right? Yeah,
There
that
you
was
go.
good.
But more that's just it. It's
Yeah.
just the moments, and so it's I don't know. I've used this analogy recently that some people are kind of like lightning rods and some people are like lightning. I'm a little bit of a lightning rod for certain things, and I think I'm able to absorb that energy. I like marinating in that energy, and so I can pick up on the lightning around me, and I like to take it in and then alchemize and recycle back out into the world in whatever way that I can.
Well, it's cool that you've been able to have those experiences, like, you know, just like you say, you see someone, you're like, maybe, you know, like maybe they do need some help, or
Yeah.
you know, is that something you've ever maybe thought of doing, like kind of, you know, I don't know if maybe celebrity, but like, you know, go travel and just, you know, randomly go to people's houses. Let's say they're like, hey, I want you to come out to X for this amount of time. Like, is that something that you've ever wanted to do? Like, kind of travel and do chiropractic, like in that way?
Yeah, I mean, when I was traveling a lot more, I used to tell people as a joke, like how many, especially after seeing, like, I think my top week was around 100 people in a week. I would treat back in the first couple of years of practice. And they would say, well, how many do you need to really get to that level where you're happy and you can kind of put it on autopilot? And I was like, I kind of just want one. I just want one family, one celebrity, one actor, one professional sports player, and I just develop a deeper relationship with that family, because I like the mastery that comes from learning different things and building the intricacies and the depth in a relationship with someone's body, with someone's mind, with someone's spirit, and you can only do that with that extra time. So that time element that you spoke about at the outset of the podcast about what you liked was that I spend a little bit longer, which is not totally normal, congruent with most of the chiropractic profession. Fortunately or unfortunately, it worked out for me. But I mean, just, I guess, cultivating that and seeing where it takes me.
Well, I want you also to touch a little bit on what your longest appointments are, because I think that's kind of cool for people here, because what you're about to say, I know people have never heard. So I would love you to just kind of touch on, like, what's your longest appointment that you would work with someone,
Sure.
but what does that look like for that time?
Sure. So, I mean, it started with about 2 hours, and then I can't remember the time it went to 2.5 and 3, but it made a jump. And I remember it would have been about 4 years ago now, when I was practicing in the Kitsilano area in Vancouver, and a buddy of mine, also a client but a good friend, Jeremy Hoffman, who's starting a wellness spa down in California right now, a social wellness spa called Quantum Wellness. Take a look. It's amazing things these guys are doing. He's a leading edge type of guy.
Cool.
He said you need to set up longer appointments, 8 hours. And it came from him first, actually, before it actually manifested or transpired. He said you need to have like 8-hour sessions, because you got a sauna in here, you got the ocean over there, you've got incredible modalities. I kind of just want to come and book off the day and come with some of my friends and put that price up there. And if that's what you want, that's what you're going to get. And it only took maybe a year or two later, where the longest session I have right now is 7 hours. and I'll routinely have one, sometimes two people, but one routine client that comes in for 7 hours. And there's different conditions that I won't get into like too much detail just for privacy, but they have some issues with their hands, genetic stuff. So I'll spend about an hour on one hand, then an hour on the other hand. And so if you were to go for a reflexology appointment for the hands and feet, it would be very similar. You know what I mean? They do about an hour on your feet, but maybe I'll do 1 hour on one hour on the other, because there's a lot of very subtle intricacies that are going on there. And I have some of this skill set through some of the training I've done in Thailand to make that session work. A lot of it is that patience we were alluding to at the start. I didn't have that patience when I first started out, but after some time into the profession and switching from just kind of winning people over in the first 5 minutes, and then another 5 minutes, then another 5 minutes. There's 3 clients in 15 minutes. I've gone more into the depth with people and connection and learning more about them. It's hard to connect in 5 minutes. Some people can do it, but for me, an hour on each hands is what it looks like with him. And then we'll go into different parts of the body with different modalities. He'll tell me about what's going on with his blood work. He'll tell me what's going on with a latest MRI that maybe he did because he's more affluent and is able to afford some of these luxuries in life. And then I'll break out into just different Thai therapies, a matarot. There's a toxin, which is a tapping with a wooden chisel and hammer from a tamarind tree that's been struck by lightning. There's a lot of interesting things that we go into. Shockwave, you know what I mean? And then a lot of acupressure shiatsu body work, where it's probably more or less just 7 hours of him resonating and in training and regulating from my physiology, much like you were resonating right now from nature. It doesn't have to do anything. It just has to witness us and be there and hold space for us. I'm doing the same thing over 7 hours, and he values the time. I value him trusting me with that experience, and so it works. And I've been pretty blessed.
Have you found that, before I even ask that question, I think it's super cool that you offer that, because I think a lot of people listening right now are going to be like, what? Like, I've never heard of this.
You bring up a good point. I don't crack people for 7 hours, so let's just get that on the record.
Yeah. No, and I wanted you to, because I wanted you to talk about it, because somebody sees that, like, well, am I just going to get adjusted for something? Like, there's more to it, right? And I think that's the reason I wanted you to talk about it, is because you're viewing it, and your mindset towards this 7 hours isn't just like, I'm going to adjust this guy for 7 hours, but you have a plan, but you also have an understanding of the individual and their needs and what you want to achieve at the end of that. With all this progressing, you have longer appointments, things like that. How's this on your body, right? Like, how have you found it's changed in the last 13 years? What do you have to do to keep strong and make sure that you're mobile and able to keep doing this?
I mean, it's a good point. I work fairly long hours right now. My job is quite physical, so if you're not lifting, moving, twisting, bending, hydrating, also eating when you can, or if you like fasting, you can do it that way too. You're probably gonna reach a point where, if your recovery's not there, as well as sleeping, getting enough sleep and good quality sleep, you're not able to show up and be that regulating influence for people. I love going to the gym right now. It's kind of my quiet time and quiet space where I can shut my brain off for a little bit, or listen to a podcast as I'm lifting weights and doing more compound activities like your squats, deadlifts, chin-ups, tricep dips, stuff like that. But then going, because we're fortunate here, and especially where I'm currently living, there's beautiful ocean there. So after almost every single workout, I mean, I maybe miss one or two, I'll go into the ocean for a little bit of, right now it's not so cryotherapy because it's summertime in Vancouver, but January and February, when it's really raining and cold, it definitely feels like it, and people give me weird looks for going in the water, but I've attached a different meaning to it. I feel very free with that balance, and so I'm a pendulum swinger. I don't have my balance is in swinging from working a lot and helping others, and then also resting. It's not quite on or off, but I do want to see if I can push the envelope with a higher output, because I think there are moments when it's fun to push that higher intensity to see if you can and keep those, I guess, harder kilometers on the car going for a little bit, because you always learn from it. Life always has a way of finding a way to teach you a lesson, and whether or not it's a back injury or a locked up SI, that makes you slow down and get a little bit extra rest and take one less client over the week. Life finds a way of kind of teaching you the lesson on how to find your balance if your goal is longevity. If it's not, it'll kick your ass too. And I mean, there's several instances of people we know that have worked a little bit too hard, too fast, that Daedalus and Icarus story, and they fly a little too close to the sun and then boom, but they learn too. So I don't think there's any right or wrong. There's just these fun lessons and challenges and beautiful challenges that we all learn from. And so I'm still learning day in and day out. I mean, you've taught me a bunch of things about what you do, what you take, who you know, and connected me with certain people where we also like that health and longevity and anti-aging space. And so you learn from everyone around you when you build that safety and comfort level where they can speak freely and tell you from their own experience what truth they've come up with and what's helped them.
Well, I think that just builds a community, but also builds each individual as a whole, right? I think the biggest value that I've learned is that helping people is priceless, man. Like just helping someone, man, like, and then because you never know how it's going to return back to you, right? And that, like I said, we've been able to build a relationship where I can connect with you with someone, you can connect with me with someone, which inherently we can help each other out, which it's just like, and I think that in itself is so valuable right there. That doesn't take me any really time to do. I've built the relationship, but it's now connecting someone that I think would also be someone who fits into that relationship as well, which I think would be important too. Yeah,
another ingredient that can make it better, or just another person that would serve from drinking from that cup. Yeah. And what they can then ripple effect out into their own community is priceless. Yeah. Then you're going to build that relationship and connection with them so that they'll remember you as the person that helped them out and build your network, your sphere of influence, your dent, in the universe, where maybe you're no longer a number on the passport. People remember your name to a certain extent too. Yeah. I remember a creed that kind of comes up now. It was loving, like, three-pronged creed that I heard recently, and I don't know if I totally believe in it, but I've kind of been meditating on it recently. But it was love God with all your heart. You can substitute God with a creator or whoever you believe is a larger, just a larger energy. So love with all your heart, serve selflessly, and then just be all you can be, right? And there's different, and be all you can be, I think, is an army slogan or quote too, or the Navy, or who knows, but it's just that aspect of like doing your best, having fun, living in the moment, not comparing, and then making it about like the journey, not the destination.
Well, and I think just being a good person too, right? Like, inherently, I think
simple, right?
Yeah, right. But I'm gonna be real, most people know if what they're doing is going to be a shitty action. Yeah. Like, you have a conscience that that it might feel like, if I do this, like, if you're questioning yourself, asking yourself, sure, usually that's probably a choice that right? So speaking of connections though, and community and things like that, I think it would be really cool for you to talk to on, like, if somebody's starting out their chiropractic journey, they're a chiropractor, you've been doing it now for more than a decade, so I think you have a lot of I know you have a lot of experience and things like that, and would be really cool to give value to somebody that's starting out wanting to be a chiropractor.
So if I believe what you're asking me is advice I would give to a young chiropractor on how to kind of develop themselves.
Develop themselves, or if you were gonna be their mentor. Sure. Let's say somebody out is beginning, and they came to you and they wanted you to be their mentor. How would you teach them, or how would you guide them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would get them to shadow. I would get them to watch, to ask questions. Again, I would create an environment of safety and comfort, where if someone's going to come to me and say, I want to mentor under you, I want to learn some of the stuff you're doing, I'd, when I was ready for it, say, come on in. I want you to be able to ask questions when we're in the appointment. If you do anything that steps on any toes, later I'll tell you, but I want you to marinate in the frequency of your learning. So be like a child, screw up a little bit, be in the room, learn. There's no stupid questions. Ask me. This is your time because you're brand new at it. Once you've been doing it for 5, 10, or 50 years, if you're still asking these really stupid questions,
and simple,
you don't have time for it. So there's no stupid questions. Go hard in the paint with that, and I would really foster that frequency, because all too often people mind their P's and Q's, I think, a little too much early on in the game, and that's your time to really mess up. So I would say, come on in, learn from me, ask questions on the fly. I'll tell you if you step on any toes. And then I would connect them with other people too, because I'm only just a slice in the pie. And so depending on what they want to do or get into, or if they don't know, you got to just shadow with as many people as possible. And you're going to get a lot of no's, but the yeses are valuable. And if you can work off of one connection, someone can lead you to the next connection and the next connections. And it's like a lot of sales and repetition. But I would train them on everything that I know and see what resonates with them.
Would you adapt them to a longer sessions? Like, I think, because, I would love to hear your take on when you were starting your schooling, right?
Yep.
Your chiropractic schooling. It seems like you adapted the longer appointments, like you said, later on.
Yeah.
Do they teach you to do quicker? Like, what's the philosophy when you're learning, right? I don't know personally. But.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is the dynasty of how chiropractic was done in the past, and the professions were about 5, 10, 15 minutes, 30-minute appointments maximum. That's just the way it was being done in the past. I think a lot of that being from more Ontario. I know OHIP here, there's MSP, and private insurance also. They cover a certain amount of chiropractic fees per session. Sometimes it's only $60, $70, or $80. So to offset that extra amount that someone's going to have to pay for, you do the shorter session, so it's completely covered. So you're running into that resistance. There's the money aspect of it. There's always that time, money, and belief that you're trying to overcome with most people. So I wouldn't tell them to do the longer sessions. I would tell them why I do the longer sessions. And it goes back to board exams to be a chiropractor, when every single complex case that comes in, and everyone these days is a complex case, they're an individual. Like it's just the way it is, especially if they come in for a really simple muscle strain. There's more meat on the bone. There's so many other things you can talk to them about, educate them on. So there's an opportunity in everything, and there's a reason they're in front of you. Every single person that comes in is an opportunity to build a deeper relationship. But I would say every single board exam, complex case, you want to have a multidisciplinary, multimodal approach. That means seeing a chiropractor, a physiotherapist, a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, a massage, osteo. Like, you want to see all the above practitioners to get the best result. But again, back to time, money, and belief. Who the hell has that kind of time? Who the hell has that kind of money, unless you're running it through insurance? You're running it through insurance. Most clinics are going to do direct billing to make it easy on the person. Now you run up against redundancy. When practitioners get busy, chiro, physio, massage, they're not going to have time to talk about your individual case. So the board exam question says to use a multidisciplinary, multimodal approach, but in actual reality, it's hard for all those professionals to get together to talk about your case. Or maybe the file's locked in one room and it's not an online booking system and you can't see it. You don't know what's been done before. You have the person in front of you, clock's ticking, you got to see another person afterwards. What do you do? So I said, you know what? I'm going to see if board exams are right. If I do a multidisciplinary, multimodal approach to make people better, which happens to be what I believe and got me better the fastest, if it actually works. So it was just more through experience that I did it, in my own personal experience, to see if it actually was true what board exams were teaching practitioners. So they set you up to do that, but they don't necessarily say to do the shorter or longer appointments. That's kind of up to you. Okay. But it's more based around, I would say, insurance.
Okay. I think too, when you were saying, excuse me, if you only have someone for 15 minutes, let's say, right? And now you have someone for an hour and a half, one issue could then inherently be from something else as well. So you might have a longer time to be able to actually get to the root cause.
Yeah.
Do you think that is also another reason why it's really important to do maybe a little bit longer?
Sure. Yeah. If it works out that way, I mean, it's always going to depend on the quality of how you feel that time. Some people just want to come in and talk to you and resonate off of you. Yeah. If you're really feeding into that long-term savings account of healing and working on things that you see structurally could show up in the future before they're showing up now. I use the analogy, I used to use the car analogy, like a mechanic. So you're putting the sensor on the car to see what check engine lights come up. And even though there's not a physical issue with the car yet, you're like, maybe we should change the transmission fuel now. You know what I mean? Even though we have like 15 versus an hour and a half appointment. People's homes, same idea. That's overgrowing over there. Maybe we trim that a little bit. I noticed that your lights are dimmed in this room and you don't use that room a lot, but maybe we should do a little work on your shoulder right now just to get that range of motion. You don't use that full abduction, but why not? Let's just loosen it up, put some oil on there. You know what I mean? So there's always a benefit you can do, but people for the large part don't really know unless you guide them through. This is what your body should be able to do functionally at this age. You should be able to do a deep squat. You should have decent hamstring flexibility. Like, you can take some of these functional movement patterns too, and just get them thinking a little bit more about, when I do this, I feel better, I have more energy, and life gets better.
Speaking of different modalities and different exercise, I actually had a question that somebody asked me for you. And it was if they're experiencing low back pain, are they still okay to work out? That was their question.
I would always say let pain be your guide. So if there's active pain, if the actual movement you're doing in the gym is causing more pain, stop.
Yeah,
it might not be so obvious.
There's different exercises.
There's different exercises you can do. No one's saying you can't do yoga, get into a swimming pool, go for a walk. You know what I mean? There's even a bike ride. It depends. Like, if it's bringing up actively pain that's getting worse, you should always stop. But if it's something that you start off with a little pain, half the time a lot of people's pain goes away when they start to work out and exercise. And intuitively, machines guide to them, talk to them. The back pain itself is resonating with someone else in a gym. If it's a busy gym and they're not solo at home, they're going to connect with someone that might have the solution for them. So it's nuanced, where you tell people to just rest after their appointments or when they have pain. I tell them, let pain be your guide. If it causes pain, take note of it, tell me about it next session, or toss me a text. But otherwise, I wouldn't directly just blanket statement tell them if they have pain, don't work out.
Yeah, and it was a question that I wanted you to. I'm glad you said the things you did, because I think it's also, again, depend on the individual, but also too, we have chatted about how, you've said somebody has come to see you for an appointment and then they go work out after.
Yeah.
Or there's some people that come to see you for an appointment and take a day or the next day off just for resting your body. And I think that in itself, knowing yourself as an individual and knowing how you work is such a big benefit for you, not just now but long term.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, you bring up a really good point. It's the meaning that we attach to things. So if someone's attached the meaning of when they go to exercise and work out, they feel free, I'm not going to take their freedom away from them. Yeah. They're going to associate me with doing that, and that makes zero sense to me. Maybe it's a social thing too, or they just like going to the gym and they can do different reps, different sets, different exercises, and still feel that high, or that oxytocin from sharing with other people and being around other people and bonding with other people while going to the gym. It's very hard to limit people's individual expression, and there's some absolutes that when you're a practitioner you kind of try to have to follow to protect people. Like, pain is one of them. But at the same token, to discover and learn more about themselves and empower them and learn more about their intuition, I think it's necessary for them to go out, try new things, and see what works for them. Because what works for one person is not always going to work for another person, and it sometimes will take you to a certain amount of time. You'll keep learning, and then you'll stop. You plateau. So you only know that through trial and error.
Well, and speaking of new and different things, I actually would like to bring some of the stuff that you have into the. So can Calvin or Graham, can you guys bring those tools over here? I would like Joe to talk about them.
Cool.
Yeah. I think this will be cool. Kind of
show and tell day.
Yeah. Now you have to watch the video.
There you go.
You can't just listen.
Yeah, let's see what we got.
Welcome, Graham. Welcome. Yeah.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, so
let's talk about
I guess this is kind of neat. This is a new tool that was brought to me by Roy Rollins, who owns a company called Fascia Edge. Graston is another group that has these stainless steel tools. This one is really neat because it's designed for practitioners with a lot of really cool ergonomics that you can intuitively kind of guide yourself. So you can use the edge here for trigger points if you don't want to use your thumbs. That helps out with like longevity in the profession. Then different edges where you would use actually on the body for different scraping techniques to bring more circulation, to bring more blood flow. It's hard to imagine, but if you were to imagine your arm as a cadaver and you were just going to like sort of cut this part off on the arm, there's different layers. You've got your skin, your fascia, your muscle, your bone. Those layers have to interface with each other. These types of tools build more harmony between the layers. If there isn't that interfacing harmony or good flow, there's heat, there's friction, and then there's adhesions that develop. So this is really neat for that, if you want to see.
Yeah,
it's kind of neat.
Thank you.
So a new design on something that's been out there already, Graston or instrument assistive soft tissue mobilization would be the umbrella that falls.
I think like
upon.
the rock, they have like rock tape. They have the Graston kind of tools too.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Kind of looks like a brass knuckle, but
exactly. I think that's what it spawned out of.
yeah, because you could probably, it's easier to guide, right? Less. Would you say it's
Totally.
harder or less hard on the hands too, right? If
Absolutely.
you have to get deeper into. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. It's less hard on the hands, and it probably spawned from Roy's martial arts background and possibly a little Krav Maga or martial arts with the brass knuckles.
Yeah,
but
this is cool.
it's neat looking too, right? I think part of it is that's his art and that's his expression that he's kind of brought to the table for the world to see, and it's beautiful.
That's dope. That's cool.
I mean, along the
Love it.
same lines is another tool here by a woman called Ashley Black.
We just recently used that on my hands.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so this is a smaller tool. I mean, she's got larger
Yeah,
tools.
the
and
bigger one. Yeah.
she's patented how many of these are on the fascia stick, and same idea. You're rubbing, and she's been really fortunate to build her company to an incredible level where she's doing a lot more research into fascia and how her tools are helping people rebuild their fascia, getting
That's cool.
out the inflammation, getting out the adhesions, getting out the scar tissue, and not only aesthetically with cellulite and things of that nature, the bigger sticks you can imagine, you can do your hamstrings or legs, back, neck, making people function a lot better, but aesthetically it's looking like they're rolling back 5, 10, 20 years on their bodies, which is beautiful. This one you can obviously use on the face even also, or maybe not so obvious. Hands, feet, I use it for. And just like Roy's tool there, they save my hands for longevity. So part of why I use a lot of tools is so that I can go for the longer sessions and I'm not fully using my body the entire time. The tools are really, really helpful, just like a handyman. Instead of hammering the nail with your hand, the hammer really helps sometimes. So that's more or less why I use those two, if you want to see that one.
Yeah, this one really helped my hands, man. Like these were like breaking down everything. I could feel like they were a lot more mobile. I also like when you adjust my hand too.
Cool. How did it feel though?
It hurts, man.
Yeah,
Oh man.
be honest about how it feels,
man. In the
right?
moment it sucks, man. Like I was even on the table, I was like, dude, this is the like sucks, but like
Totally.
It's the after. I think that's the thing is like we look at it as like you got to go through a little bit of pain to get the relief that you need, right?
Hey man, I've done 2 marathons, 6 or 7 triathlons, and same idea. If you have people around you that are supporting you when you're going through the last 100 meters or last kilometer of the really long race, it makes it worth it, and you remember those moments. They have meaning, right? So you got to go through a little bit. There's got to be some kind of energy that's unlocked, evoked, spurred up inside of the body to have that meaningful change. Otherwise, it's just another transactional pedestrian experience.
Well, and that's why I like you talking about these tools, because you use things that are different, and I really like that. So
yeah, and part of them are fun for marketing too, because I just like the look of it. As an artist, I really do like the look of it, and you get really cool questions from people about what they are and what they do. This one is from a group called Biofield Tuning. Eileen McCusick is the one who does it, and she uses a lot of sound healing. So this is a little bit more in the metaphysical realm of when you're listening to music, it makes people dance. It's almost like magic. How does that music make these people dance a similar way with that same bass wave that they move their bodies? You can do the same thing with tuning forks. So instead of binaural beats, these are analog, and all they require is a little bit of a ding on the hand, and you might be able to see it vibrate from there. It might be difficult, but you can put it over different parts of the body, and that vibrational frequency, that sound is running through you. So this sonic slider is the same frequency, 7.83 hertz, the Schumann resonance that planet Earth is in. So when lightning strikes the Earth, it pings out a frequency that's Schumann discovered was 7.83 hertz, which happens to be the same frequency as a deep forest. So as we're in a deep forest, we feel this relaxing element. As we're regulating off of it, we're in a lower vibrational frequency. They say that of a theta wave, which is also the same for hypnosis, deep hypnosis, when they're reprogramming and suggesting things, because you just have more available energy to learn something. When you're in high frequency, wide awake, alert beta mode or gamma, you're more just locked into specific targets and you kind of have the blinders on. But the moment you start to relax a little bit into the Schumann resonance, then it'll send that vibrational frequency through the bones, where instantly it takes you into like being in a deep forest, and your bones feel more relaxed.
Well, and you've done it after pretty big adjustments. That's usually when I've seen it being used too, right? Just kind of relax as someone gets back into their like a relaxed state, right?
Great point. So it's a lot like I said, an entertainer and in training the mind. I'm taking you through a bit of a performance, right? And so there's a crescendo, or maybe I have a towel around your neck, and I'm doing a quick y-axis distraction, and the whole spine is tractioning and moving. I don't know if people have seen that YouTube video, but they're out there a lot these days, and then regulating afterwards. And so there's a lot of evidence out there for high intensity training or sprint training, and then meditation afterwards. The highs and the lows. How well can you do that dance?
How well can you probably recover from it too, right?
Relax, respond, and recover. Relax, respond, and recover. How well can you do that? Or adapt, respond, and recover. So adaptation is evolution. And so playing in that pendulum is just a fun way of doing it. So yes, after a larger adjustment that kind of shocks your body a little bit, I like to use things to help me regulate the room, the person, so that they feel, whoa, I just went through something, but paradoxically, I feel incredibly relaxed.
Yeah. Well, and if you've never experienced a adjustment like that, like in the moment, I've always, there's videos actually, I'm like, holy, like, but then let's say 5 seconds later, I'm just like, whoa, like you just feel so relaxed after.
You got it. And so the large component behind that is I'm always telling people to breathe. Just breathe, because after that adjustment, most people hold their breath, and it's not like anyone is further along in the levels or stages of life when you hold your breath after a big adjustment and you failed. Everyone does it. And so it's just that reminder: breathe, work with all the components you do have on your own body that are free. Breath is probably the best one, if not the best one. And then yes, we can use tools to help you further regulate also.
I'm just tuning myself over.
Yeah, man. I love that thing. And you can bring it all over your body. There's some evidence that
is there specific areas that are gonna tailor to different things, or is it?
She uses it for toning as well. So she says there's evidence if you want to use it on your neck. So if there's a woman that maybe has some wrinkles, or a man on their neck, even though typically it's a little bit more suited to, we'll say, the feminine demographic, they're using the tuning fork for their neck. They're using it on the jaw. They use it under the arms. I mean, I use it for different purposes, but I don't see why there couldn't be some value to someone that's also just using it to regulate tone on their body. And if the skin is like the largest organ in the body, if you're stressed out, it's probably not going to appear as vibrant, beautiful, or as authentic as you would like. So this tuning will help it more be like being in a deep forest. It'll just relax. It's not being judged in that moment, and it'll probably just let go. Well,
I feel like it's cool because I just tried on different areas, and like you were saying, you can use it on different areas too. But if I put it right here when you were showing, it feels way different than if I just put it on my knee.
Yeah.
Like it's like I can feel it through my whole chest, and it goes kind of down in my core and a little bit up into my back.
Yeah.
It's cool.
There's these Dantian points. So there's there's 7 chakra systems in Indian Ayurvedic medicine, but the 3 Dantian points, I believe, are your third eye, your heart, and then your sacral. And so those 3 areas just have a larger bundle of nerve endings where they got a little more bang for your buck than using it in a knee or an elbow. They tend to send more signals, to the rest of the mix.
That's
cool. You're talking to a higher person up in the company that is your body, the CEO of a division, and then they're going to trickle that message out to the rest of their...
That's a cool analogy. I like that. Yeah. Cool.
So what do we got here? This is part of these are brass tools from Thailand. They come as a set.
So did you get them when you were in Thailand?
I got them when I graduated from a Thai doctor's course known as Amatarot, and it's a Buddhist monk technique that also coincidentally is a scraping technique. And these tools are used in the monasteries there. So the thumb would go in here. You could use it in and around the hands. You could use it for smaller parts in the forearm. There's a larger tool that comes as part of this 3-part set. This is the smallest one that you would use, again, for fingers. So some of those longer sessions, I'll go into the hands. I'll go into the different ligaments, the tendons, the carpal bones, and just get people to meditate on those spots. Acupressure, shiatsu points, meridian points. They're beautiful. A lot of people don't get to experience that. So in Thailand, they take a little bit more of that attention to detail. Through taking these courses, it really helped me with patience and discipline. I mean, part of the graduating component to this course was the woman made me walk in a circle every day. I would show up for about 30 minutes, and I'd have to walk as slow as possible in a circle, about a 6-foot diameter, so a very small circle, for about 30 minutes before she would start her lesson. And it was literally just to meditate, one foot in front of the other, and to
relax,
do something and nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people say that we're busy, chicken with their heads cut off, running around. A lot of people do nothing in something. And here with meditation, they teach you to do something in nothing.
Huh.
You're doing a lot
That's cool.
for yourself, you know what I mean? But outwardly, you're not showing a lot to people. You're just walking in a circle.
Do you know how hard that would be for, I would say, probably 80%, 90% of the people to do?
Might be partly because everyone is kind of on the continuum for ADHD or autism. I might have a little bit more of those frequencies going on, and so I'm able to hone in specifically on certain things, which is great. And so from the meditative point of view, that focus can be like a laser-like focus that you can weaponize when you practice. And so I quite enjoyed it. She also made me take some pills for digestion. She wanted me clean and clear, so I'd take them at nighttime, and she told me that I would SHIT my pants in the middle of the night. And she was right, true to form. But again, these
what a nice awakening, right?
These new in Thailand too, so you know it's a different experience, right? In the newness of this experience, you really memorize and remember and form a long-lasting memory of what you were doing there. So these two tools are kind of to commemorate that experience of Dr. Nui in Thailand. So she's up in Chiang Mai. You can take her courses. I highly recommend them. The third piece of this is this big, long, 3-foot-long wooden stick. I'll use it on you one time with a brass tip, and you can go up and down the spine and over the scapula. It feels incredible. And it's just one of those things where a matarat means that which brings eternal life. And so the body over time gets compressed. This is a tool to decompress. And so they'll listen with the tool up against their ear as they're scraping the body. It's 3 feet long with this tiny little shovel tip, brass tip, with, again, the Thai hand on it, you know, for healing. And they're just opening up multifidus, tiny little muscles in the spine that govern proprioception, where your body is in space, and they're just working, very meditative, very difficult to do for a long period of time, but you get better at it with time and reps.
Well, I'm loving this so far. This is awesome.
Awesome, man. And then this last one is...
this is one of my... I like this one.
It goes by a lot of names. It is a finger caught that, chefs would use to cut vegetables, attached kind of jimmy rig to a pediatric blood pressure cuff, and then one of my younger son's hair ties, because he still has that beautiful long blonde hair. And then use a toothpick or whatever you want really to guide it inside the nose to functionally create a release in the conch, the nasal conch. And there's 3 of them per side, and it dramatically increases people's breathing. I mean, there are reports through different techniques of craniofacial, endonasal balloon, there's nasal specific technique, and they speak to more blood flow going into your pituitary and pineal gland and restoring cerebrospinal fluid up to the neck. I can't speak to that kind of thing. And in BC, we're not actually legally allowed in our scope of practice to do this adjustment, but I still enjoy practicing it with friends and family for that moment when perhaps we can get it as part of scope of practice in BC, which coincidentally I'm actively trying to go through our governing body to get done right now, actually.
Well, I think it's, well, like you said, man, breathing is huge.
Massive.
It's huge. Like, if you're not breathing properly, like, that's like, even, talking to people with sleep apnea, we're going back to sleep. Like, if you're not breathing properly during your sleep, like, how do you expect to function the rest of your day?
You create, you put a governor. You put a governor on the golf cart, and you can't go as high, fast, or as far as you might want to in that moment. And for me, that's the worst thing. Just like solutions quick. This adjustment is $350 US if you go to the States. It's taught at the core curriculum, part of the core curriculum at accredited chiropractic colleges, and has been for a long time now. We're just a little behind in Canada. So maybe it's partly my role you were talking about before to shake up the profession a little bit and hopefully guide adding to scope of practice. So this might be one thing that can be included very, very soon. I mean, I do it with friends and family. I'm not able to take money for it, but I do I appreciate the trust that people allow for me to do this. And I've probably logged over 1,000 of these adjustments over the years, just doing it with friends and family. Well, not for money, of course.
Yeah. Well, and that's the I think that's the big thing is that, with any of these practices, you probably have to test them out and try them out on people that that trust, but you also trust them too, right?
Yeah, you got it. And when the ones I can do on myself, I do on myself. And so this one I actively use on myself. I won't say daily, but when I was first learning, I would do it daily, sometimes multiple times per day, just to get the reps into practice. So now I can do it, eyes closed, upside down, sideways, trains, planes, and automobiles.
That'd be cool, yeah.
Right?
Oh, well, this is awesome, man. I just want to thank you so much for just explaining these tools. And this is what I was talking about, different philosophies, different things that you do. And I'm glad that you took these out and explained them, because it shows that, it's not just crack of the neck and you're on your way. There's other things that are being used. But speaking of all this, I'm going to finish off here, but I always say at the end, like, where can people find you? Plug yourself right now. This is where, if they want to book an appointment with you, whatever it is, like where can they all find you?
I'm unlisted. Yeah. When you're ready to find me, you will find me. I go by Vancouver Muscle Doctor on Instagram. That's probably the easiest way you can find me. If you wanted to look up Dr. Joe Pratile, you could also find me that way. I think Google, I was laughing with someone the other day, has me as an internet personality and not a chiropractor. So I don't even think you have to put the doctor in there. If you just put Joe Pratile, I'm now known as an internet personality, which is probably pretty accurate. So that's the easiest way. And they can VancouverMuscleDoctor.com. Yeah. There's websites too.
Cool. And are taking new people, like there's clientele, right? You're taking new people right now. As many, there's no kind of, do you have anyone that you're working with right now to kind of transition to any new practices or anything like that?
Yeah, nice question. So along with learning the new doctor's technique that I'm mentoring under right now, as well as actively running a busy clinical practice, I don't foresee in the future that I will stop taking on new patients and clients. I love doing that. Part of why I do this is to connect with new people. And so I love meeting new people, and that's probably the bulk and large share of my practice is how many new patients I see. So it is the most fun for me. It is where I find the most meat on the bone, and then obviously developing the depth with them with the longer session is also something that's fulfilled me very, very greatly over the years. So
cool.
Yes.
Well, if you haven't seen Joe, man, go you got to go see him now. So book your appointment. But I just want to thank you so much, man, for taking the time just to have this conversation, explain your theories and your way of going about chiropractic and just you as a person, man. I really appreciate it, and thank you.
Likewise, my friend. Thanks. Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me on.
So everyone, thank you so much for listening to episode 18 of the North Star podcast. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and stay tuned for the next one. Thank you.